Annual Central New York Veterans Expo and Stand Down. My name is Jessica Perouse, and I am the lead coordinator for this year's event. I would like to take a moment and introduce Dr. William Durgan. He is the provost for SUNY Poly. This marks the third year that SUNY Poly has been a generous host for this event.
Well, thanks very much. My job here is very simple. It's just to welcome you all, so welcome. We're delighted to have all the vendors. We're delighted to provide this opportunity to all the veterans. This is a terrific opportunity for SUNY and for our new SUNY Polytechnic Institute, which is our new name in case anybody hasn't heard. Certainly really exciting times on this campus, as I think you can all see. We've a new building just around the corner that's nearly complete. It should open in December. It's a very, very exciting new building for us on campus. The campus is also experiencing really exciting times. We've unprecedented number of applicants to our campus. Enrollment's been going up now for 2 years straight, a very significant amount, more than 11%. We have new academic programs. Proud to say that we serve a lot of veterans in our academic programs. Our faculty also do a lot to support veterans with some of the assistive device programs that we have on campus, some of the work that we do with Citrin for returning veterans who need rehabilitation. So we have a very proud heritage here on campus of working with veterans, and we're delighted that we have you all here today and we're able to provide this opportunity. I think you've got a terrific program lined up for you here today. It's going to be well worth listening to, and I'm just thrilled to see so many vendors. I understand that not only did we fill all of the tables that we thought we would fill, we ended up with about a half dozen walk-ins, so to speak, and I think folks were able to accommodate them as well. So this is really great. Lots of opportunities here, lots of room for serving our returning veterans, and a wonderful opportunity for us here at SUNY to be able to welcome you all and to help you with all your efforts. So thank you all very much and enjoy the program here today.
Welcome everyone. This is the 8th annual Vet Expo and Stand Down. And for those of you who don't know, the goal of today's events is to connect our military members and veterans with the community supports that are available to them. In this room, there's over 75 different agencies that have come together today to show their support. And I think that speaks to the passion our community has in supporting those that have taken the oath for our nation. Pulling this together was no small feat. I would like to take a moment just to recognize the Vet Expo Planning Committee. This is a committee that meets almost all year to plan for today's events. Not only is it bringing in all the vendors that we need to show the services that are available, but advertising for the events, and making sure that the things that we have available today meet the needs of the veterans that we're working for. So I'd like to recognize Donna Bijan from the Syracuse VA Medical Center, Dan Burkhout from the Marine Corps League, Mary Erin Blair from New York State Division of Veteran Affairs, Bill Brown from Soldier On, Edith Buffalohead from the American Red Cross, Jeff Cleland from IVMF at Syracuse University, Steve Darman from Social Science Associates, Kate Duran from Hospice and Palliative Care, Mary Griffin from Oneida Housing Authority, Jim Cato for RCIL, Jen Martin from the Central New York Veterans Outreach Center, Scott McCumbers from the Parkway Center, Pam Palazzo from Mohawk Valley Small Business Development Center, Madison Przalski from the VA Medical Center, Robert Renendez from the Syracuse VA Medical Center, Vincent Scalise from the Utica Center for Development, and Melissa Weibel from the Syracuse VA Medical Center. As you can hear, we have a wide variety of different agencies that come together to make this event happen. So I just really want to thank all of them for working together for this. At this time, I would like to welcome Echo Company 4th LAR for the presentation of colors and for the national anthem. If you could please stand at this time, it would be appreciated. Thank you again for coming today. I'm really excited to present this next part. Each year we request feedback from those that have attended our event. And based on the feedback from last year's event, we wanted to do something a little different than our normal keynote speaker. I'm very excited to introduce this year's speaker panel. The idea for WARN, Veteran Testimonies from Iraq and Afghanistan, came from feedback from attendees asking for more information about what service was like in the current conflicts and what could be done to help new veterans returning home. Today we have three amazing speakers here to talk about their service, the struggles that they had with the reintegration after service, and what has helped them overcome these challenges. Jeff, Scott, and Josh have agreed to come here today and talk to us about that topic. They bravely served their country in a war zone, and today are here to again serve their country and fellow veterans by bearing their souls and sharing their testimonies. I will let them introduce themselves as they tell their story. We ask that if you have questions for one of the panelists, that you quietly raise your hand and get a card to write your question on and turn it in to one of the Expo committee members. I will lead a question and answer period after the panelists have spoken. Please welcome Jeff, Scott, and Josh to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, Jessica said we volunteered. I think she made us do this, so. My name is Jeff Cleland. I am a Central New York native from Camillus, New York. Grew up in the West Tennessee School District, and if any of you are from this area, you know that we are lacrosse players out there, and I was a two-time state champion, and I passed up on college lacrosse to enlist in the Marine Corps, which is surprisingly not the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, but pretty close to it. I enlisted in the Marine Corps and signed up to be an infantry machine gunner, where I was sent to 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, Fox Company, and deployed to Fallujah, Iraq almost immediately after getting to my unit. So I was a machine gunner in Fallujah, which was not a good time in 2006, and was wounded twice. Decided to stay in country. I turned down the Purple Hearts just so I could stay in country. And upon returning home, I was sent to Washington, D.C. out of the blue and medically retired. Didn't plan on getting out, wanted to make a career out of the Marine Corps, and that wasn't in my cards. So I got out, pretty lost in life, ended up at Onondaga Community College, and about 2 or 3 weeks into schooling, I got a bill from the school. I'm like, why did I get a bill? Well, it turns out you have to sign up for the GI Bill, and nobody told me that. I just thought that it happened, which I'm sure some of you here deal with that. So I was lost in life. About 2 months into the semester, I dropped out, started driving a truck for my family's business, and about 3.5 years of drinking and being lost in life, I found a purpose of helping other vets. And that's a little bit what I want to touch on today is, how we can, I think that the community, everyone here, and the veterans can help themselves, is finding a purpose. I found this purpose, and I've had so many friends since I've come home that have taken their own lives or just are on a path to that eventually. I mean, I've lost more friends since I've been home since when I deployed in Fallujah, which is sad. It shouldn't be that way. So there I was, I'm no college education, and I'm driving a truck, and I just one day had this epiphany. I'm like, you know what, I need to go back to school. I need to figure something out. So I re-enrolled at Onondaga Community College and finished my associates there, and where I went to Syracuse University through the Yellow Ribbon program, which is an incredible program. They paid for my tuition at Syracuse. Stayed involved with some veterans organizations. I interned for Richard Hanna. I see Jason Phelps here over there. And it's a really great program at Syracuse. I went through the policy studies, public affairs at Maxwell School, which landed me a job at Clear Path for Veterans, where I was helping veterans get off the streets, homelessness, through the SSVF grant, working with Soldier On, who I also see over there. They do great work. And I just currently found a position at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, which is and also an incredible organization. We do great things. We have Dan Cohen back there right now with the VCTP program, and I work for community engagement and innovation. So here I am now. I don't know if I'm a success story yet because I just graduated college last May, but like I said, I actually wrote some stuff down, so I probably should start reading it. But just going off the cuff here. So I think the hardest thing I had when I first got out of the military, and I'm sure a lot of veterans, and I know there are a lot of civilians in this room, but when you get out of the military, you have this feeling that the world owes you something. And that was the hardest lesson I learned in life, is that the world doesn't owe you anything, no matter what you've done for this country. And maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, but it's the truth. I got out and I was like, well, I deserve a job. I deserve this. Well, I didn't really deserve anything because I didn't bring anything to the table. I learned that if you show up to a job interview and you ask what your skills are and you say I'm a veteran, that doesn't really mean anything. That's not a skill. What we need to do is we need to teach veterans. I needed to teach myself that you need to come to the table and they say, what are your skills? And I say, I learned I could lead a team, I can work under arduous conditions. That's important. Just being a veteran doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, there are a lot of benefits. There's the GI Bill, there's the VA home loan, there are these benefits out there, but we need to work to build our skills so that the civilian world will, accept us to become back into the community. So there I was with, my interviewing skills weren't the best, but as younger veterans, we come out of the world into this community where there is the GI Bill, like I said, and these programs, and they're great. But we can't just stand around and ride the coattails of our predecessors, the veterans before us, the ones who got us those programs, like the Vet Center, who's also here, I saw. These programs are great. We can't be riding their coattails. We have to get out there and we have to start our own programs. We have to start our own things, make it our generation, which I think it's important. I think we're doing it. But not on a big enough scale. There are a lot of the post 9/11 veteran population, their unemployment rate's very high, the suicide rate's very high. I still think there's strides that can be made in that. I see it a lot on social media as a lot of the younger veterans, they sit at home and they want people to feel bad for them. Maybe they don't want people to feel bad for them, but that's what it comes across as. And just sitting around and posting on Facebook saying, this should be different, this should be different. As a younger generation of veterans, we need to get involved. Get involved with your community, get involved with an organization, get involved with a church, because sitting around and posting something on the internet is not going to make any changes. Being involved, being part of the change, that's how things get done. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that no veteran has the same experience that I had when I got out. It shouldn't be that hard. There's no reason. We learn these skills in the military. Everything you have is brought to you by the lowest bidder in a quantity that's probably not sufficient to accomplish the mission, but we still accomplish the mission. Why are we not doing that in the civilian world? We should be doing that. And that's what I'm fighting, to make sure that this younger generation, and the older veterans, but mostly who I work with is the post 9/11 population, I'm making sure that they make those strives. So not to be cliche, but you have to end with a quote, because you can't really say it better than someone who said it before, our 35th president, who said, ask not what your country can do for you, but I think we should ask what we as veterans can do for our country. Thank you.
Hi there. My name's Scott McCumber. Can everybody hear me in the back? Or no? You good? Okay. I grew up in a very small town about 10 miles from here in Ilion. And it is a very small town from everywhere else in the world I've been. When I was younger, I was very, sheltered from things in life and in society and in the world in general. But I always had this dream and desire to do something big with my life, to go out and do something that would change the world. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to. My senior year of high school, I actually joined the Marine Corps, and I had never even applied to a college. Despite the fact that I did very well academically. I did every sport extracurricular you could. But I just did not see college as my path at the time. So I went into the Marine Corps and very quickly found what it was that I was missing my whole life growing up, and what I wanted, which was a feeling of being a part of something bigger than myself, a feeling of acceptance for who I am, not what I was trying to be. I met a lot of great friends along the way, and at every phase of it, it was great. The beginning started a little rough. I had a pretty bad injury that held me up for a couple months. After I fixed myself, which I'm still not fixed, I'm still struggling with it, but I moved on, I went to my schools, and I became a helicopter crew chief for 3.5 years. The weekend before my 20th birthday, I had checked into my one and only squadron, which was in Okinawa, Japan. So here's this 20-year-old kid, very naive to the world, never been anywhere outside of probably Utica, is about the farthest I've been. I find myself in the middle of Japan. I very quickly started to learn my way around the world and kind of open up myself. And it was those around me who really helped me do that, because now I am in a situation where I'm relying on all these other guys and girls who are in the same situation. They're from little towns scattered across the entire country, and you come together and you get put in these circumstances where either you fold up and you fold up and fail, or you thrive, and they're not going to make you fail. You're going to thrive in it. So for me, it was the greatest thing I had was I really felt like I was a big part of something. And at the time, I thought, well, maybe this is my chance to do that big world-lasting impact that I can leave. Again, checking in shortly before my 20th birthday, I had grown up very, as I said, kind of sheltered, a little bit in a shell. I never drank, never did anything like that. Throughout school, as I got older, I had my first actual party when I checked in on island. And I very quickly adapted to that lifestyle. I spent the next 3.5 years, with the exception of 8.5 months where I spent out on a ship, visiting different countries and doing different UN missions, and the roughly 6.5 months I spent in Iraq. I spent the rest of that time as a functioning drunk. I would drink every single night. Work night, weekend, didn't matter. A weekend or weeknight before work, 18-pack would get me through to where I feel okay to go to bed. Weekends, at least a case, maybe 2 bottles of liquor, whatever. So I began to find enjoyment in that, and I found later that I wasted a lot of my time with all these countries I'd been to, with all the things I could have seen. The only thing I was worried about was finding the best pub on the island or finding the best bar or restaurant to go to pass the night away, instead of going and seeing some things that I really probably should have. After I came home from Iraq, I had saved up enough leave. I actually carried over 90 days on the books for leave when I came back. And I said, well, you know, I did my 5 years. Time to go to college, time to grow up and be a big boy, I guess. That's what I should do. So I left the Marine Corps. Within probably 2 months, I regretted it completely, 100%, because I went from being this guy, Sergeant McCumber, in the Marine Corps, being a helicopter crew chief, flying crazy missions all over the world. I came back home, and I'm back to being Scott, you know, kid who grew up here, who you come home, and it's not that it's the people here's fault, like as far as your friends, family. Sometimes you're just not allowed to change in their eyes, and it was hard for me because a lot of things had changed. When I had left, like I said, I was very shy, very naive. I came back, complete mirror opposite of what I was. I was very outgoing. I was very confident in myself. I could walk into any room, not to the point where I was a jerk, but basically like I owned it and didn't care who I was talking to because I was confident enough in myself that it didn't matter. I knew what I was doing was right, important, whatever the case may be. So I come home, back to just being Scott. I started going to college. I went about a year on campus. At the same time, I continued drinking, not quite as often as I had, but I found that when I did, it put me right back into that same mindset as when I was overseas still. I would have a couple drinks. As soon as I did, I would loosen up, and I would start thinking about all those things I didn't have anymore. I would think about my friends that weren't around anymore. I would think about the fact that I'm not doing anything with my life in my eyes. I mean, for me, going to school, it's whatever. I'm going to college. It's nothing big. I should be doing something more. So I began slowly, actually pretty rapidly, going down a downward spiral. Within a year of being home, I had totaled the vehicle I bought on leave from Iraq in a vehicle accident, had been arrested for a DWI, which is very common with people when they come home. And I had basically pissed all my money away, pardon the language, but a few more might slip out. So within a year of coming home, I had basically ruined everything I had built up. And I didn't really think that there was a way to get out of it, that there was a way to get that feeling back, that was pretty much it for me. A lot of nights I would sit there in my kitchen, and I got into the habit of I would go through my day doing whatever I had to do, and I would crack open a bottle of liquor at night, sit down, watch movies until 4 in the morning, and drink myself into a stupor. A lot of nights I would sit there and just say, you know what, it's done. This is it. This is the end for me. I might as well just finish it off right now. I actually had developed a plan of how I was going to drink myself to death over a few-month period. So it was a pretty dark time. Shortly after that, I had joined the National Guard, and very quickly after that went into recruiting. Looking back on the situation, it was not the best move for me to do. I go from one branch of service I know everything in the world about to one that I have no idea what the MOSs even are. But again, looking back on it, it got me back into uniform. It got me back into doing something productive with my life. But at the same time, it enabled me to stay in those patterns I had, and it enabled me to stay right where I was. After leaving recruiting, I moved back home, back to the Valley, and switched over, became an MP, surprisingly with my past, but I did. And I ended up deploying to Cuba for a year as a QRF squad leader for Joint Forces, for the Joint Detention Base. It was a year that was highly stressful, but again, I now had that position where I had people underneath me. I'm making decisions. I have millions of dollars in my arsenal that I'm in charge with, that I'm doing inventory for, that I'm using. Started to give me that sense of purpose and feeling back, and it made me feel good about it. But like I did in Japan, I amped up the drinking. Why wouldn't I? I mean, here's your option. You have nights off. Why learn something? Just, keep wasting away. So shortly after I returned from Cuba, I had imagined the whole time what it was going to be like when I came home. I said, been here, done this, I redeployed, I know exactly what it's going to be like. I know what I'm going to go through. It was a lot different. I was not a 23-year-old single guy coming back from 5 years of active duty. I was now, I think, 28 at the time, married with a daughter. Very different. It wasn't until probably about 6 months after I'd been home that I really found my struggle started. And I quickly went back into those same struggles and same patterns I had before, where I would find myself in my living room at 4 o'clock in the morning with a full glass of liquor sitting next to me, just sipping out of it all night. I spent about a year doing that. I had gone to college 2 more semesters, but again, that was not even nearly enough to satisfy me, to make me feel fulfilled. So last year at the Vet Expo, I had came here on a whim. I found every reason in the world not to come up here. I had found every excuse for the past year of why I needed to stay in my house, why I couldn't leave. I took online classes so I wouldn't have to go on campus somewhere, because then I wouldn't have to deal with people. It would let me stay in my comfort zone, and I can sit there and get half drunk while I write a paper. So I came up, I kind of stealthed my way into it and tried to stealth my way out of it. And I heard a voice behind me coming from the Red Cross table, and she's still sitting there, who yelled. She goes, "Hey, get over here." So I'm like, oh, geez. Walk over. We ended up talking for an hour about everything. And she talked about, what are you doing, whether it's work, school, whatever. And up to this point, I had, again, found every reason not to throw myself back out into the world. But these kind of got my gears turning. And about a week later, I saw a posting for a job on a whim. I looked online, found it. And Jeff talks about the interviewing skills and stuff like that. And I don't know if mine were great or not, but my 2 bosses are over here, and they seem to like it pretty well. So I ended up getting a job. And I call it my first real person job. Because up to this point, all I had done is go to college and be in the military. And for me, it's different. It's just something I do. I love it. It comes easy for me. Like I said before, I was basically a functioning drunk. I could get trashed every night, go to work, and still outwork any single person in my entire unit. So this was my first real person job. I quickly began to get involved with a lot of things through the community. And getting involved with my job at the Parkway Center had opened my eyes to a whole different world out there that I never even knew existed. I thought when I came home, the only support there is, you know, the standard ones that they give you when you demob, and they give you all the website links for, and say, go look at this when you get a chance, and that's it. I found a community. I found you guys. Everybody's sitting in this room right now. I found everybody, and it was comforting. It was not only comforting, but I started to look at it as, you know what? This is my way to do what I want. This is what I need. I quickly became very accepted in a lot of your circles of meetings and coalitions and things like that. And I got to tell you, for somebody who needs that drive, it feels great to be a part of that, to be a part of something bigger. I used to look at my past, and I used to stay in it. I used to sit there and think about everything wrong that had happened, think about everything that I didn't like, think about what I was missing. I've learned, and through a little bit of training, I was lucky enough with the Army to go through a Master Resilience Trainer class, which opened a lot of things up for me as well, and really made me take a hard look at myself. Shortly after this, I stopped drinking because I realized I am pissing my life away. Literally, it's going away. You spend 3 days wasted because you're drunk, and then you take 2 days to recover, you lose everything. So once I got a little bit of self-awareness about myself and really looked at what I was doing, I still look back at the past, but what I do now, instead of looking at it and staying in it, is I look at it as kind of a way to connect everything that's happened. Because, and it's true with anybody's life, if certain things didn't happen along the way, good, bad, whatever the case may be, nobody would be where they are today. You wouldn't be the person that you are today, no matter what's happened to you. I was afraid to come back out and to do things and to get involved with things. And I don't know if it was so much because I was afraid of failing at it or if I was afraid of how much I really could succeed at it and be afraid that, holy crap, all these people rely on me to do this. But again, that's that feeling that for me, I need that. I thrive on it. It's what pushes me forward every single day to work sometimes 15, 16 hours a day, doing different things if I need to with all my commitments. But that's what I need. I used to think that if I did fail at something, that would make me a failure in life. It doesn't make you a failure if you fail at something, because if you fail at something, if you don't do good at something, it doesn't matter, because the next time you go to do it, you have that much more knowledge going into it the next time to succeed better. The biggest difference for me was I was sitting in my car a little over a year ago. It was probably right after the Vet Expo when I started getting my head out of my ass again, pardon my language, and started going down my path of finding myself. And I have a habit of, I was kind of scrolling through YouTube when I was sitting in a parking lot, and I found a motivational video. And I'm like, oh, what the hell is this crap? So I listened to it, and it was pretty good. And it's a lot of different things that, you know, whatever. But one thing that really stuck with me was a guy named Eric Thomas, who's a motivational speaker, said, the most important thing is this: to be able at any moment to sacrifice what you are for what you will become. For me, I thought about that and I said, holy crap, how true is that? Yeah, I've done all this stuff in my past, whatever, but I have so much further I can go and so much more I want to do. That's really made the difference for me as I look into the future. And I don't know the final outcome of what's going to happen to me. I'm finishing my last year of college this year, and I've changed my major and minor, I think 5 or 6 times in the past year and a half, because something interests me, and I take an interest in it, and I go with it. But it has shown me, no matter what path I go down, that if I listen to my gut, if I listen to my feelings, if I really just listen to myself and do it, when I look back 10, 20 years from now, I will again see how all of these events have lined up to take me where I am. And you can't see it looking into the future necessarily, but if you know your plan, if you know what you want to do, you can move forward with that. Lastly, again, I ended it with a quote. I think this one was Steve Jobs in one of his commencement addresses. Do what you believe is great work, and the only way to do great work is to love what you do. I used to spend so long thinking I had to work a job because everybody else was doing that, or because that's what other people expected me to do. Over the past 2 years, I've turned down, I think, 6 civil service jobs because something inside said, that's not right, that's not going to make you happy. And if I spend the rest of my life working a different job every 2 to 3 years, I don't care. I'm not going to do something that's not going to make me happy anymore. And for me, that's the difference, because as long as you're happy, that's what matters. So, that's all. Is it loose or something? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joshua Perouse. I was voluntold to do this today. I am married, 4 children. I am a Sergeant First Class out of HHC's 2nd and 8th in Utica on the Parkway. I enlisted in September 26, 1996. I was a junior in college, junior in high school, listed at 17. Something I had not always wanted to do, but I was always fascinated by the Army movies and G.I. Joes, things like that. My father had served in Vietnam, and my grandfather had served 32 years in the Navy. So I did have a military background. So when I enlisted for a couple different reasons. Obviously for the family heritage. I enlisted for college, for the college money to get an education. I also enlisted just for the honor and the commitment that any sort of military branch brings to the table. I've always been very disciplined, very neat and organized as a child, so it was a good fit, I thought, at the time. Obviously, after 9/11, everything changed. Before that, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, going to finish high school, going to college, working part-time, that sort of life. 9/11 changed it all. 9/11 was a Tuesday. By, I think it was Thursday or Friday, I was down in New York City at JFK Airport doing Homeland Security missions throughout JFK, LaGuardia, all that. We had some guys, not me personally, we had some guys at Ground Zero. Did that for about a year. Then I switched to nuclear power plant Homeland Security at Indian Point near Fishkill. Did that for about a year. October 1st, 2003, September 31st, 2003, I got a call from my platoon sergeant back at home saying to get ready to come home. No idea what was going on. Obviously, everyone at the Homeland Security missions were watching the news every day. The fall of the statue of Saddam was a big deal for us, the capture of Saddam, all that stuff. Never really thought, hey, I'm National Guard. 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, other than we're going to be used in New York State. They would never send us out of state. October 1st, 2003, commander at the unit down in Indian Point said, hey, all you guys from the 27th Division, pack your bags, go report to your home stations. At this point, I was a specialist in Delta Company, 2nd 108th out of Rome, New York. I was a infantry. I was a gunner on a Humvee, worked with mainly 50 caliber machine guns and Mark 19 grenade launchers. And I take missiles as well. So we get to our home station, and about 3-4 days later, we up at Fort Drum, New York, for train up to go over to Iraq. We had gotten the order. We were officially OIF 2, the second wave in. So again, we had watched the news, the first wave in and everything that they had done and gone through. Spent about 5-6 months train up in Fort Drum, landed in Kuwait in January of 2004, and then drove through the border, drove up to Iraq. I was actually detached, my platoon was detached to the 1st of the 18th, 1st ID Division. So we were stationed just outside of Tikrit, which is where Saddam was born, and we're just outside the city is where they found him. Like I said, we were on the outskirts of Tikrit. I had a sister platoon that was stationed inside Tikrit. They had the inner city. We had all the area around surrounding Tikrit, up and down the main MSR Tampa. It was definitely an experience that none of us were expecting. We had police officers, COs, college students, regular working people. When I deployed, prior to deployment, I had my first child with my then wife, my now ex-wife. So, a lot of us had never been away for other than the 2-week annual training or whatever, for the National Guard. So it was a big adjustment learning to be active duty soldiers. We had some prior enlistments that, from active duty to be National Guard soldiers, but their intent was to 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, serve out the contract, do, flood watches or flood, emergency relief, things like that. Normal stuff National Guard soldiers did in the past. But no, here we are in Tikrit, doing convoy escorts, security missions, daily patrols. We were in charge specifically of locking down the area that we were patrolling. We had numerous, we would get into engagements daily, multiple times a day. It got to the point where when we heard small arms fire, it didn't faze us because A, they were terrible shots, and B, it got second nature. Like we almost didn't hear it anymore when, the pings off the Humvees and everything from the rounds being fired. Spent the first 3-4 months obviously just adjusting to the area and everything. Middle of the tour is when I think at least my truck, but at least my platoon's whole attitude changed. My truck got hit by an IED. Luckily no one was hurt. It was a fairly small one, we think, and it was just detonated at the wrong time. But that was our first IED encounter as a platoon. I had then a couple months later I got into a second one. Again, you kind of get numb to it. First IED, it was 2 days before my first daughter's birthday. It's a very significant day for me, because I remember being on patrol, can't wait to get back to base, be able to call my daughter, wish her happy birthday. Like I said, we were actually just south of Kirkuk on our way up to Mosul, doing a convoy security, and like I said, luckily no one got hurt, and we continued mission. So January 2004 comes around. We get the order that we're coming home. Again, we're coming from Iraq, 90-degree, 100-degree weather. We land in Fort Drum. It's like -13. It's at night. The wind's blowing. We literally had to walk off the plane on the tarmac carrying, like we were in desert ACUs or DCUs, and paper thin. We're all freezing. Like none of us had the forethought to bring out our winter coats or whatever. We're in nothing. Carrying all our stuff, slipping and sliding. We have desert boots on that has no grip, probably worn down from all the patrols and stuff that we had done. So we get back. I think we officially hit ground December 31st, 2004. I think it was like 10:30 at night, so it was almost the new year. Spent the first week or two up at Fort Drum, turning in weapons, things like that. This is long before they had any of the reintegration programs that they have now. Basically, 2-3 weeks later, we're done. We're on, I guess you could call it terminal leave for 2 months. We didn't have to drill for 90 days, 3 months. So, everyone's kind of just expected just to, full combat military, and now you're a civilian. I spent my first 90 days not doing anything. An alcoholic haze. At this point, I was dealing with divorce proceedings for my ex-wife, so that did not make things any better. Dealing with custody issues with my daughter. So yeah, I don't remember the first month or two that I was home. I don't remember what I was doing. I don't remember where I was. I don't remember anything. It wasn't until I got reintroduced to a neighbor who I had known from probably kindergarten, first grade, or at least 3-4 years old when we had parents used to babysit us and make us play together. got reintroduced to her, and we like to joke that, I came to her house first time, she made me pasta, and I just never left. So eventually we got married. We are married now. We have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, plus my daughter from my first marriage. But it was a struggle. It was a struggle reintegrating. Prior to deployment, I had a cubicle job, and when I got back, obviously they were required to hold it. I worked there for a couple months, and I probably was on the edge of killing everybody, just anybody in the office. Not because they specifically did anything, because I couldn't handle the confinement. I couldn't handle the, excuse the language, the pissing and moaning of civilians. Here I, again, just come from everything I had been through, injuries, and getting blown up, and all the physical and mental health trauma that I had. And I'm listening to, someone saying, oh, I couldn't get vacation time, or hey, I have nothing to do, whatever the circumstances was, really upset me. Learned how to drive again. Instead of, driving in the middle of the road, not running through stop signs, I had to actually follow the law. So it was an adjustment. Like I said, I spent the first month or so not remembering anything that happened. Then it was a very slow process reintegrating into civilian life. Luckily, I did have good support at home, good support with the family. The problem was I wasn't ready to heal. I wasn't ready to forgive myself for whatever had happened or whatever I thought I had done overseas. I wasn't ready to move on. I was still, like I said, drinking every night just to get to sleep, self-medicating, the whole deal, PTSD issues, things like that, not being able to go out in public, as Scott said, just, I found every way and reason not to go out. Never did any shopping, never did grocery shopping, nothing for a long time. Couldn't handle it. And if I did, it was as in and out. I've never been through Walmart so fast. I don't think anyone could get through Walmart faster than me. And then the turning point was I had a lot of honesty and faithfulness issues. And the turning point was when I thought I couldn't handle it anymore and I was hospitalized. Not a very good time in my life, but that kind of woke me up. It was still a slow process after that, but that was kind of the wake-up call that unless I want to change and unless I change, I'm not going to. Obviously I was getting a lot of counseling from the VA, a lot of, counseling at home, and just, a lot of people wanting to support me, but I didn't want to support myself. So life went on, and like I said, it wasn't until that moment that I realized that, what, it's me that wants to change. No one can change me. I got serious about my treatment. Started going to the right doctors at the VA, started seeking, private therapy or whatever I had to do, put the effort, knowing that I had the support at home, knowing that I had support from my family, that made it all better. And then the second turning point was I'd lost my faith in God, faith in humanity for the time, all the stuff I saw. Very angry, very lost, not knowing where to go and what to do. But then we actually started going to church. A friend of ours, old friends of mine and my wife's, suggested that we come to church, a local church with them. I think that was the best decision. It wasn't, obviously it's because of the religion, but it's the community. It's the, it's gives you a path. It actually started the healing process. It gave me a purpose, gave me a sense of, something to live for at this point. Having faith in something is what really, really helped me to start healing. I got baptized, and at that point, that was my way of starting over. Now, me and my wife got baptized. It was my way, after that, all the bad stuff that I had done and happened to me before was my past life. Then, I was a new person. I could start healing. It's been a couple years. I mean, I'm still a work in progress, as apparently that's what I'm told. But, you know, it's a daily struggle. It's a daily struggle not to come home after a bad day and you know, drink a six-pack or whatever. It's a daily struggle not to be angry at every single person I see, you know, civilians or whatever. You know, it's a struggle, but knowing that I have the love and support, again, of my family, you know, my wife, my kids, you know, my community, all the stuff that I belong to now, it really does help. I think that's the hardest thing, transition from being a soldier to a civilian, is not knowing where to fit in again, not having that community. I mean, active duty, you know, I was never active duty unless I was activated. So being National Guard, you know, you did 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, and then we're spread out all over the state. You get back from a major deployment, you may not see your buddy that you just spent 12 months, you know, in a foxhole with, or, you know, in the same truck with, knowing every single thing about him, to not seeing him for, you know, a month or two at a time, or, you know, the two days on a weekend. I mean, I would assume that's the same thing with active duty. You know, you get out of active duty, you're in a different state maybe, you know, no other family around, you're lost. It's, I think finding that purpose and finding that community is what will help a lot of veterans reconnect with society. I think that's it. All right, thank you very much. Here's Jessica.
All right, thank you very much, guys. We have a couple questions from the audience, and then we'll finish up. If you have another question that you'd like to ask that you haven't had time to write down, please see one of the Vet Expo committee members. And I'll kind of read the question out loud, and you guys can fight over the mic as to who would like to take it. One of the questions is, as a helping professional, what do you think veterans need to help encourage them to access services? Is there anything you think that some of the community service members that are here today can do to help encourage the younger veterans to come on in?
It is tough to get some of the younger veterans to step up and come in, but I think that one of the biggest things is you have to make them realize that there is this community here of everyone here. It's what Scott said, and thank you for everyone here, that they're not alone, and that you're not alone as well, because they see one provider that's coming to help them, but they need to know that, you know, there's, 75 organizations in this room that are willing to bend over backwards to help them. And that's one of the biggest things, is to know that they're not alone. It's a military thing too. You never go into a battle alone, so why are they going into it alone afterwards? Yeah.
Also, that is the stigma of going to seek help. I know that's prevented me from going for a long time, you know, the whole PTSD thing. I think society or whatever has gotten better at taking away the stigma, but there's still a stigma that, you know, if you go to the VA for mental health issues, you know, you're crazy or whatever, you know, whatever you want to say. So I think taking away that stigma of going to seek help is what they need to realize.
Okay, here's another question. Is there one place that you would recommend for a veteran to get started in getting reconnected with their community?
Yeah, I think we're all biased.
That's okay. We'll do a biased answer from each.
The Rome VA. Anyone else?
Sure. One thing that kind of, I guess, before I even got a job that spurred my re-involvement, I was forwarded a TED Talk video, and I don't know if anybody in this room knows what TED Talks are, but I'm sure some people do. And it was from a guy named Jake Wood, who founded a thing called Team Rubicon, and it works with disaster response and veterans. And that's really what started my path, and something we've been doing in this area, and I've been trying to spur, is doing disaster relief projects or recovery projects using local veterans. And I use it as a way to kind of give them that purpose back. And the way I see it is, if you can work somebody's ass off all day long and they're tired, they might not go home and hit that bottle at the end of the night. They're gonna feel good about being around some people. So for me, that's really what it was about, was getting involved in some organizations where I can get out and get my hands dirty, and that was my real starting point, I guess.
Yeah, I'm completely biased on this too, but I think Clear Path for Veterans in Chittenango, New York does some amazing work. They have a myriad of programs from massages on Mondays to free lunches on Wednesdays for veterans. But it's just a place to go to relax. It's not clinical at all. You can just hang out, and if you want to talk to other vets, you can. If you don't have to. You can bring your dog out there. They're a great program, and I think that's a good jumping point for everything. But none of these are bad options.
Okay, and we've got one last question. What do you think we as a community still need a little work on? Where do you see maybe a gap in services for our new returning veterans?
It's kind of hard because every person is different. Certain things work for some people and certain things don't work for other people. But I think a lot of people need to be challenged. They need to be, a lot of organizations, everybody does great work, and the one hard part is if you're giving too many handouts, it's not a, what do they say, it's not a handout, or it's a hand up, not a handout or whatever. But you gotta task them. You have to give them things to accomplish. You have to give them a mission. You have to give them something to do. It's their responsibility to do it. And the hard part is that some people won't do it. Some people, it's going to take them a while to do it, and the biggest thing is you can't get upset, you can't get disgruntled, you can't get discouraged if, you're continually asking this one person to do something and they're just not doing it. They'll come around eventually, but you have to give them a purpose, and you have to task them with something and make them do some of the work, because like everybody said up here, it's up to the individual. I mean, every organization in this room is here to provide so much great support. But it's up to that individual to want to take it and to accept the change and to move on and to employ themselves again in whatever fashion it is.
I think like what said earlier with the stigma on veterans, especially with the PTSD issue, because that is on the forefront of everything right now on the news, would be somehow getting rid of that stigma, trying to get rid of that stigma, and maybe it's something as simple as maybe not treating veterans any different than the average 22-year-old when you come home. Yeah, okay, we served our country, we did some great things, but it doesn't mean we have to be like looked at and watched funny, because that's what a lot of us feel like. I think a lot of us feel like, oh, this guy's looking at me funny, he must think I'm crazy or I have PTSD, and that might not be the issue, but it's because I think the community has this, we treat veterans differently, and I think we need to get rid of that.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to thank the panel for being here today. If I could get a round of applause, I think this was amazing.